Hello and welcome back to day 184 of our chronological Bible in your reading plan. And today we are in 2 Kings again, and we have chapters 5 through 8. Starting with chapter 5. Jumping right in. And Naaman, commander of the army of the sovereign of Aram, was a great man in the eyes of his master and highly respected, because by him Yahuwah had given deliverance to Aram. And though a brave man, was leprous. And the Arameans had gone out on raids, and had brought back captive a young girl from the land of Israel, and she served the wife of Naaman. And she said to her mistress, "If only my master were with the Nabi," which is the prophet, "who is in Shomeron, then he would recover him of his leprosy." And Naaman went in and reported to his master, saying, "Thus and thus spoke the girl who is from the land of Israel." And the sovereign of Aram said, "Go, enter, and let me send a letter to the sovereign of Israel." And he went and took with him 10 kikars of silver, and 6,000 gold, and 10 changes of garments. And he brought the letter to the sovereign of Israel, which said, "And now, when this letter comes to you, see, I have sent Naaman my servant to you, so that you shall recover him of his leprosy." It's just a bug. It'll be fine.
I don't like that bug.
I'll take care of it after this. Verse 7. And it came to be, when the sovereign of Israel read the letter, that he tore his garments and said, "Am I Elohim to kill and keep alive, that this man sends a man to me to recover him of his leprosy? For consider now and see how he is seeking an occasion with me." And it came to be, when Elisha, the man of Elohim, heard that the sovereign of Israel had torn his garments, that he sent to the sovereign, saying, "Why have you torn your garments? Please let him come to me, so that he knows that there is a Nabi in Israel." Again, a prophet. So Naaman came with his horses and chariot, and he stood at the entrance of the house of Elisha. And Elisha sent a messenger to him, saying, "Go, and you shall wash 7 times in the Jordan," which is the Jordan River, "that your flesh might be restored to you and be clean." But Naaman became wroth, and went away, and said, "See, I said to myself, he would certainly come out to me, and stand and call on the name of Yahuwah his Elohim, and wave his hand over the place, and recover the leprosy. Are not the Abana and the Pharpar, the rivers of the Damasek, better than all the waters of Israel? Could I not wash in them and be clean?" And he turned and went away in rage. And his servants came near and spoke to him, and said, "My father, if the Nabi had spoken to you a great matter, would you not have done it? How much more then, when he says to you, 'Wash and be clean'?" Then he went down and dipped 7 times in the Jordan, according to the word of the man of Elohim. And his flesh was restored like the flesh of a little child, and he was clean. And he returned to the man of Elohim, he and all his company, and came and stood before him, and said, "See now, I know that there is no Elohim in all the earth, except in Israel. And now please take a gift from your servant." But he said, "As Yahuwah lives, before whom I stand, I do not accept it." And he pressed on him to accept it, but he refused. Then Naaman said, "If not, please let your servant be given 2 mule loads of earth, for no longer is your servant going to make a burnt offering and slaughtering to other mighty ones, but to Yahuwah. Yahuwah grant forgiveness to your servant in this matter. When my master goes into the house of Ramon to worship there, and he leans on my hand, and I bow down in the house of Ramon, when I bow down in the house of Ramon, Yahuwah, please grant forgiveness to your servant in this matter." And he said to him, "Go in peace." And he walked from him some distance. But Gehazi, the servant of Elisha, the man of Elohim, said, "Look, my master has spared Naaman, this Aramean, while not receiving from his hands what he brought. But as Yahuwah lives, I shall run after him and take whatever from him." And Gehazi pursued Naaman. And when Naaman saw him running after him, he came down from the chariot to meet him, and said, "Is there peace?" And he said, "Peace, my master has sent me, saying, 'Look, even now 2 young men of the sons of the Nebaim have come to me from the mountains of Ephraim. Please give them a kikar of silver and 2 changes of garments.' And Naaman said, 'Please accept 2 kikars.' And he urged him, and bound 2 kikars of silver in 2 bags with 2 changes of garments, and handed them to 2 of his servants. And they bore them ahead of him. And when he came to the high place, he took them from their hand, and stored them away in the house, and let the men go, and they went. And he went in and stood before his master, and Elisha said to him, 'Where did you go, Gehazi?' And he said, 'Your servant did not go anywhere.' But he said to him, 'Did not my heart go with you when the man turned back from his chariot to meet you? Is it time to accept silver and to accept garments and olive trees and vineyards and sheep and cattle and male and female servants?' So let the leprosy of Naaman cling to you and your descendants forever. And he went out from him as leprous as snow. Chapter 6. The sons of the Nebi'im, again the prophets, said to Elisha, See the place where we dwell with you is too small for us. Please let us go to the Jordan, and let every man take a log from there, and let us make there a place to dwell. And he answered, Go. Then the one said, Please undertake to go with your servants. And he answered, I shall go. And he went with them, and they came to the Jordan, and they cut down trees. And it came to be, as one was cutting down a tree, that the iron axe head fell into the water. And he cried out and said, Oh, my master, for it was borrowed. And the man of Elohim said, Where did it fall? And he showed him the place, and he cut off a stick, and threw it in there, and made the iron float. And he said, Pick it up. And he reached out his hand, and took it. And the sovereign of Aram was fighting against Yisrael, and took counsel with his servants, saying, My camp is in such and such a place. And the man of Elohim sent to the sovereign of Yisrael, saying, Be on guard, do not pass this place, for the Arameans are coming down there. The sovereign of Yisrael then sent to the place of which the man of Elohim had spoken to him, and warned him, so that he was on his guard there, not once and not twice. And this greatly troubled the heart of the sovereign of Aram. And he called his servants, and said to them, Declare to me, who of us is for the sovereign of Yisrael? And one of his servants said, None, my master, O sovereign, for Elisha, the Nabi who is in Yisrael, declares to the sovereign of Yisrael the words that you speak in your bedroom. And he said, Go and see where he is, so that I send and get him. And it was reported to him, saying, See, he is in Dothan. And he sent horses and chariots and a great army there, and they came by night and surrounded the city. And the servant of the man of Elohim rose early and went out and saw an army surrounding the city with horses and chariots. And his servant said to him, O my master, what do we do? And he answered, Do not fear, for those who are with us are more than those who are with them. And Elisha prayed and said, Yahuwah, I pray, open his eyes and let him see. And Yahuwah opened the eyes of the young man, and he looked and saw the mountain covered with horses and chariots of fire all around Elisha. And when they came down to him, Elisha prayed to Yahuwah, and said, Strike this nation with blindness, I pray. And he struck them with blindness, according to the word of Elisha. And Elisha said to them, This is not the way, nor is this the city. Follow me, and let me bring you to the man whom you seek. But he led them to Shomeron. And it came to be, when they had come to Shomeron, that Elisha said, Yahuwah, open the eyes of these men, so that they see. And Yahuwah opened their eyes, and they looked and saw that they were in the midst of Shomeron. And when the sovereign of Yisrael saw them, he said to Elisha, My father, should I smite? But he said, Do not smite. Do you smite those whom you have taken captive with your sword and your bow? Put food and water before them, and let them eat and drink and go to their master. And he made a great feast for them, and after they ate and drank, he let them go, and they went to their master. And the bands of Aramean raiders came no more into the land of Israel. And after this it came to be that Ben-Hadad, the sovereign of Aram, mustered all his army, and went up and besieged Shomeron. And there was a great scarcity of food in Shomeron. And see, they besieged it until a donkey's head went at 80 pieces of silver, and 1/4 of a cob of dove droppings for 5 pieces of silver. And it came to be, when, as the sovereign of Israel was passing by on the wall, a woman cried out to him, saying, Help, my master, O sovereign. And he said, If Yahuwah does not help you, where do I find help for you? From the threshing floor, or from the winepress? And the sovereign said to her, What is troubling you? And she answered, This woman said to me, Give your son, and let us eat him today, and tomorrow we eat my son. So we cooked my son, and ate him. And I said to her on the next day, Give your son, and let us eat him. But she has hidden her son. And it came to be, when the sovereign heard the words of the woman, that he tore his garments. And as he passed by on the wall, the people looked and saw the sackcloth on his body underneath. And he said, Elohim do so to me, and more also, if the head of Elisha son of Shaphat remains on him today. And Elisha was sitting in his house, and the elders were sitting with him. And the sovereign sent a man ahead of him, but before the messenger came to him, he said to the elders, Do you see how this son of a murderer has sent someone to take away my head? Look, when the messenger comes, shut the door and hold him fast at the door. Is not the sound of his master's feet behind him? While he was still speaking with them, then see, the messenger... The Then see, the messenger came down to him, and he said, Look, this evil is from Yahuwah. Why should I wait for Yahuwah any longer? Chapter 7. And Elisha said, Hear the word of Yahuwah. Thus said Yahuwah, About this time tomorrow, a seah of fine flour for a shekel, and 2 seim of barley for a shekel at the gate of Shomeron. And an officer on whose hand the sovereign leaned answered the man of Elohim and said, Look, if Yahuwah is making windows in the Shamaim, shall this word come true? And he said, Look, you are about to see it with your eyes, but not eat of it. And there were 4 leprous men at the entrance of the gate. And they said to each other, Why are we sitting here until we are dead? If we shall say, Let us go into the city, the scarcity of food is in the city, and we shall die there. And if we sit here, we shall die. And now come, let us surrender to the army of the Arameans. If they keep us alive, we live. And if they kill us, we shall die. So at twilight they rose up to go to the camp of the Arameans. And when they had come to the outskirts of the Aramean camp, look, no one was there. For Yahuwah had caused the army of the Arameans to hear the noise of chariots and the noise of horses, the noise of a great army. And they said to each other, Look, the sovereign of Israel is hired against us, the sovereigns of the Hittites and the sovereigns of the Mitzrites to come against us. So they rose up and fled at twilight and left their camp as it is, their tents and their horses and their donkeys, and they fled for their lives. And when these lepers came to the outskirts of the camp, they went into one tent and ate and drank and took from there silver and gold and garments and went and hid them. And they came back and went into another tent and took from there and went and hid it. Then they said to each other, We are not doing right. This day is a day of good news, and we are keeping silent. If we wait until morning light, then wickedness shall come upon us. And now come, let us go and inform the house of the sovereign. And they came and called to the gatekeepers of the city, and informed them, saying, We went to the camp of Aram, and look, there is not a man or a voice of man, only horses tied and donkeys tied, and the tents as they were. And the gatekeepers called, and they informed the house of the sovereign inside. So the sovereign rose up in the night, and said to his servants, Let me now inform you what the Arameans have done to us. They know that we are starving, so they have gone out of the camp to hide themselves in the field, saying, When they come out of the city, we shall catch them alive, and enter into the city. And one of his servants answered and said, Please let some take 5 of the horses that are left in the city. Look, they are like the entire crowd of Israel that are left in it. And look, they are like the entire crowd of Israel left from those who are consumed. So let us send and see. Then they took 2 chariots with horses, and the sovereign sent them in the direction of the camp of Aram, saying, Go and see. And they went after them to the Yarden. And look, all the way was littered with garments and weapons which the Arameans had thrown away in their haste. And the messengers returned and reported to the sovereign. Then the people went out and plundered the camp of Aram. So a seah of fine flour was for a shekel, and 2 seim of barley for a shekel, according to the word of Yahuwah. And the sovereign had appointed the officer on whose hand he leaned to be in charge of the gate. But the people trampled him in the gate, and he died, as the man of Elohim had said, who spoke when the sovereign came down to him. And it came to be, as the man of Elohim had spoken to the sovereign, saying, 2 seim of barley for a shekel, and a seah of fine flour for a shekel, at this time tomorrow in the gate of Shomeron. That officer answered the man of Elohim, and said, Now look, if Yahuwah is making windows in the Shamaim, which is the heavens, is it according to this word? And he had said, Look, you are about to see it with your eyes, but not eat of it. And so it came to be for him, for the people trampled him in the gate, and he died. And then I believe we have chapter 8 as well. Let me double check. Yes, we do. Chapter 8. And Elisha spoke to the woman whose son he had restored to life, saying, Rise up and go, you and your household, and sojourn wherever you do sojourn, for Yahuwah has called for a scarcity of food, and also it is coming upon the land for 7 years. And the woman rose up and did according to the word of the man of Elohim, and she went with her household and sojourned in the land of the Pelishtites 7 years. And it came to be at the end of 7 years that the woman returned from the land of the Pelishtites. And she went to cry out to the sovereign for her house and for her land. And the sovereign was speaking to Gehazi, the servant of the man of Elohim, saying, Please relate to me all the great matters Elisha has done. And it came to be, as he was relating to the sovereign how he had restored the dead to life, that see, the woman whose son he had restored to life was crying out to the sovereign for her house and for her land. And Gehazi said, My master, O sovereign, this is the woman, and this is her son, whom Elisha restored to life. So the sovereign asked the woman, and she related to him. And the sovereign appointed a certain eunuch for her, saying, Return all that was hers, and all the increase of the field from the day that she left the land until now. And Elisha came to Damascus, and Benhadad, sovereign of Aram, was sick. And it was reported to him, saying, The man of Elohim has come here. And the sovereign said to Hazael, Take a present in your hand, and go to meet the man of Elohim, and inquire of Yahuwah by him, saying, Do I recover from this sickness? And Hazael went to meet him, and took a present with him of all the goods of Damascus, 40 camel loads. And he said and stood before him, and he came and stood before him, and said, Your son Benhadad, sovereign of Aram, has sent me to you, saying, Do I recover from this sickness? And Elisha said to him, Go and say to him, You shall certainly recover. But Yahuwah has shown me that he shall certainly die. And he looked steadily until he was ashamed. Then the man of Elohim wept. And Hazael said, Why is my master weeping? And he answered, Because I know the evil that you are going to do to the children of Israel, lighting the strongholds on fire, and slaying their young men with the sword, and dashing their children, and ripping open their women with child. And Hazael said, But what is your servant, a dog, that he should perform this great matter? And Elisha answered, Yahuwah has shown that you are to be sovereign over Aram. And he left Elisha, and came to his master, who said to him, What did Elisha say to you? And he answered, He said to me that you shall certainly recover. And on the next day it came to be that he took a thick cloth, and dipped it in water, and spread it over his... Sorry for that break there. Let's see. He took a thick cloth, and dipped it in water, and spread it over his face, so that he died. And Hazael reigned in his place. And in the 5th year of Jehoram, son of Ahab, sovereign of Israel, Jehoshaphat was sovereign of Yehuda. Jehoram, son of Jehoshaphat, began to reign as sovereign of Yehuda. He was 32 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned 8 years in Jerusalem. And he walked in the way of the sovereigns of Israel, as the house of Ahab had done, for the daughter of Ahab was his wife. And he did evil in the eyes of Yahuwah. However, Yahuwah would not destroy Yehuda for the sake of David his servant, as he promised him to give a lamp to him and his sons forever. In his days Edom revolted from under the hand of Yehuda, and made a sovereign over themselves. And Joram passed over to Zair, and all his chariots with him. And he rose by night, and smote the Edomites who had surrounded them, and the commanders of the chariots. But his people fled to their tents. Yet Edom has been in revolt from under the hand of Yehuda to this day. Then Libnah revolted at the same time. And the rest of the acts of Joram, and all that he did, are they not written in the book of the annals of the sovereigns of Yehuda? So Joram slept with his fathers, and was buried with his fathers in the city of David. And Ahaziah, his son, reigned in his place. In the 12th year of Joram, son of Ahab, sovereign of Israel, Ahaziah, son of Jehoram, sovereign of Yehuda, began to reign. Ahaziah was 22 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned 1 year in Jerusalem. And the name of his mother was Athaliah, the granddaughter of Omri, sovereign of Israel. And he walked in the way of the house of Ahab, and did evil in the eyes of Yahuwah, as the house of Ahab had done, for he was the son-in-law of the house of Ahab. And he went with Joram, son of Ahab, to battle against Hazael, sovereign of Aram, at Ramoth-Gilead, and the Arameans struck Joram. And sovereign Joram went back to Jezreel to recover from the wounds with which the Arameans had struck him at Ramah, when he fought against Hazael, sovereign of Aram. Then Ahaziah, son of Jehoram, the sovereign of Yehuda, went down to see Joram, son of Ahab, in Jezreel, for he was sick. And that concludes our reading for today. I thank you for joining us, and I hope you're reading along and reading for yourself. And peace and blessings and love to you. See you in the next one.